right, guys, we're back. Welcome to the latest episode of The Athlete Connection. I got my guy, longtime friend, Mr. Toby Davies here. Toby, how long we go back? Like third grade, second grade, something like that?
Man, I would say at the least fourth grade, fourth grade.
Yeah, something like.
Harupa
Well,
Hills, yeah, Harupa
anyway, right?
Hills,
Hoopa Hills, band,
yeah,
sports, everything.
band,
So,
yeah, all of it.
yeah, man, excited to get you on the show. Glad we can get you on. We've been talking over the last couple episodes, really with just like current and former athletes, but I wanted to get
hmm
you on because I know you have that athletic background, but you obviously have a unique perspective, working with your nephew. So, before we get started, just let everybody know this is just to really provide a platform to provide insight, context, perspective for some of those up and coming athletes. And hopefully they can get something, learn something out of it to help their process and their journey. So if you guys have any questions, follow us, reach out to us at Tri Elements Fitness, visit our website, trielementsfitness.com. Definitely like and subscribe because hopefully it's definitely something that can help everybody out. But again, Mr. Toby Davies, let everyone know obviously who your nephew is, obviously where he's at, and we'll get into it.
Well, yeah, man, thanks for having me. Uh, my name is Toby. My nephew's name is Jaylin Davies, same last name. He plays for UCLA. But yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah, right. I know it's a lot to unpack, and we probably don't have enough time to get into it. But just kind of starting off, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe coming out of high school, he was definitely heavily recruited, one of the
Yeah.
top cornerbacks, right, in the country, high ranked in the state. So how was that? How was that experience for you guys? Really being heavily recruited, and ultimately figuring out where you guys were going to go or where he was going to go.
Well, it was a blessing, a huge blessing. To be honest, getting into it, I just wanted one thing for them, and I wanted them to have a free education. And then it turned into, being me being appreciative over just one offer and one opportunity to go anywhere to him having the option to go almost anywhere he wanted to go, which is a huge blessing. A lot of kids don't get that opportunity. So, I mean, talked about grateful, man. I was very grateful, humbled, and yeah, man, I can't express that enough. So it it's 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 a good thing. It's a great thing, and I can't really I can't really describe the feeling because it all comes at once. You know what I mean? A lot of times you have to pinch yourself and be like, wow, this, you have these many options. Like, wow, this is what's really going on. But, I mean, humble is the best way I could describe it, to remain humble because a lot of it can, come off like, you got all these major colleges, calling you, you're speaking to head coaches that you've seen on ESPN your whole life. And it can go to your head, and I've seen it, go to a lot of parents' heads, kids' heads, and they get lost in it. And but once that kid signs, he signs, and that's where it stops. So I feel like he was really blessed, to have, to be heavily recruited and have that many options. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you guys are going through it and kind of really starting from an early age, almost preparing for that free
Yeah.
education. And again, it's almost like I don't want to say underwhelmed or overwhelmed is the right word, but I mean, it's like you said, it
hmm
happens really quick. So you being that father figure in his life,
Yeah.
obviously that mentor for him, like what was that like for you? Like, what are some of those things that you kind of had to learn real quick to kind of help put him in the best situation, or you guys making the right decision for him at the time? Like, what are some of those things that you guys talked about, or some of the things that you kind of went through to learn as you went through that?
Well, when it started, just like with every parent, it starts off, you seeing potential in your kid and just wanting to water it. You know what I mean? They already have the potential, the talent's there. The fearlessness is there. The willing to work is there. Which is very important. And when I seen it, I'm like, man, we gotta take advantage of it. And I'm gonna water this thing, and thank God, I got to give him his credit too, because he listened. Sometimes it was tough. He didn't want to listen, but he listened for the most part. And
Listen to
and
what? Like,
only
what were some of
and
those
he
conversations you guys were
like
having?
So there was a point in time in junior high, for example, where he was, playing dual sports, where he was playing basketball and football. But as an adult, you could kind of see things coming, and you can kind of know just off of life experience what's going to come and how things are going to happen, and projection wise, knowing his body type, my body
Right.
type, our family's body type. And I'm like, well, you know what? You're never going to be a 6'5", 6'6" kid, 6'4".
Right.
So, you don't want to put all your eggs in the basket for basketball. Basketball is so political that, not saying that he couldn't have got a scholarship in it, but he would have had more choices playing football. So early on, I told him, like, yo, we can't play basketball no more. We have to fully focus on this football thing. And, he really didn't want to do that because he had fun and he was actually really good at basketball too. And, he didn't want to quit it. But, I kind of, had to tell him, you got to focus on this right now. And he lived,
What age was that when you guys started talking about focusing in on, one
sorry about
sport?
that.
And no, you're good. What sport? I mean, sorry, what sport? What age did you guys kind of have that conversation to really kind of identify, like, hey, this is an opportunity.
Oh,
Let's
man.
focus in on it.
It was about when he was 11 years old. 11 years old. I started to see it getting serious. I started to see the opportunity, and a lot of it was, early on, growing up, we played sports, right? Me and you. So you learn the politics early on when you're in it yourself. And I knew the politics, and I was gonna avoid anything that was gonna set him back or not be seen. So I knew, for one, I had to get him to a place that can develop him, for the next level. So I was always thinking ahead, always. And if that means I had to drive to Riverside to do it, I'm gonna drive to Riverside. Now at that time, not now, right now it's probably a norm to, go. And this is when he was playing, first started playing Pop Warner. Fontana Pop Warner was close, you know. But I started to see a trend. Okay, he's playing the same kids every year. He's not really going up against real linemen. Um, he's not really, yeah, he's playing running back, but is he really going to be a running back? Is he going to have a body for a running back? And I had to be realistic with myself. Like, yeah, it's all cool. It's all good that, he's getting the ball, this, that, and the third. But the earlier we could get, started on what he's going to be, in the future, the better. Because that experience you can't get back, So
Yeah,
I did my
that
research. Yeah,
time.
that time you can't get back. So
Right.
early on, after his first 2 years of Pop Warner, I'm like, okay, this is kind of getting old. I'm seeing the routine, playing the same kids from nearby cities. I felt wasn't going to really get him better. Which, that was just my opinion. I felt that wasn't going to prepare him. So what I wanted to do was give him the hardest road. And then at the same time, I seen it was getting easy for him, a little too easy. So I'm like, you know what? All right, we've done this 2 years. You've done your thing here. Um, I heard about, through multiple sources, about this other chapter starting up called the IE Ducks. And I was a Duck fan because after watching, obviously, Oregon with Chip Kelly and, his tempo offense, Jaylin started to fall in love with it at the time. He was about 9, 8, 10. So we started to watch it, and, we became, Oregon Duck fans, based off their style of play. And and plus, obviously, the uniforms. You can't get no cooler than, the Duck uniform. So we heard about this little league team that was actually doing the same thing. There was discipline. They were only recruiting the best in the area. So I'm like, hey, let's go. I did my research on the internet, seen that they had a camp, and I was like, okay, let's go see how you fit in with these guys. Let's see if you can hang with these guys. Went to the camp. Uh, his coach at the time, Steve Seeley, shout out to Steve, came up to me and was like, "Man, like, we want your boy. Like, can he play with us?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Can he, man? He'd love
He,
to."
yeah, you got something. There's something
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
So that was the first. I mean, Pop Fontana Pop Warner definitely laid the foundation, and then I didn't want him to get too complacent because complacency is the cause of the death. And yeah, you get too complacent, get too comfortable. You feel like, you know, just because he's the man there doesn't mean he's the man everywhere. And I wanted him to try to face as much talent as possible. You know what I mean? Before he
Adversity,
got to
all
high
those things.
adversity,
Right.
competition, competing against
Right.
guys that are just as good as him, if not better. You know, and IE Ducks is where it was at.
So obviously, you made that transition to now a travel team. Um, Checked all those
Right,
boxes in terms of higher level competition, all those things.
right.
So fast forward, junior year, sophomore year, probably, maybe even sooner. I don't know, but like started getting recruited. Like, did you guys have that same mentality, or like what was that experience like that ultimately led you guys to obviously getting into Oregon or just choosing Oregon?
Well, man, it's a lot of steps, man. Like, and I could go through the steps quickly, but like I said, if I never go out of my comfort zone and say, hey, okay, yeah, I got to drive extra 30 minutes, which was unheard of at the time. People was calling me up, man, you driving all the way to Riverside to play football, and he's not even getting the ball. He's not even running back. He's not even the star player. Like, if I would have been like, yeah, and then listen to that, mindset, he probably wouldn't have had the opportunity he got right now because what I learned early on in my age group, in our generation, was that, no matter how good you are, you have to be seen. So when we went to the Ducks, that was the first stepping stone. From the Ducks, it grew and grew. The organization grew hype. It started to, a lot of talent year after year started going through there. Then that same talent started to get recruited. Let me not say recruited, but started to get seen by the top high schools in the area. So then the top high schools in the area, you started to have your. It was kind of like graduating from junior high was going to college, but for high school. And
Right.
then and then from there,
Right.
I started learning about the Trinity League, which was the private school league, and obviously we all want our kids to go to private school and have the top tier education. Man, when I seen modern day, he could actually play there and had an opportunity, I didn't hesitate, man, because growing up, seeing those three stripes, I mean, it was just like, man, like, you knew those guys were the real deal. So that was the second stepping stone, which was huge. If I don't make one of the two, like, if I say, okay, well, no, he's good, I'm gonna keep him local and he's gonna go to Etowanda or he's gonna go to Rancho Cucamonga, which isn't a bad choice. But if I don't take the extra step out of my comfort zone and what's not convenient, you never know. You just never know. And
Right.
I've seen kids just as good as him make those choices to stay,
Right.
home and have it be convenient.
Right.
And in some cases, it hurt them in the long run. It really
Right.
did. And it wasn't because they weren't good enough. It's just that nobody could see them or respect the talent that they were facing. So then from being at Modern Day, which is a trafficked school for colleges to come through,
Right.
pretty much, and then at the time, he was surrounded by talent. So they're looking at all the talent on the team. So all these colleges are coming to see Bryce Young, who's at Alabama right now,
Right.
Elias Ricks, who's at Alabama right now. They're coming to see Mace Funa, who's at Oregon. JT Daniels at the time. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's in plays for the Detroit Lions. Jaylin had to go up against him his freshman year. You can't get any better training than that. You know what I mean?
Right.
To go up against Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Remigio, CJ Parks, these guys that are doing it on a high level as a freshman,
Right.
it's only, iron sharpens iron. So that was, at that point, being at Modern Day and being on that front stage, really gave opportunity for him to be seen.
And you now that you say that, like you say opportunity, people only think as opportunity as like recruiting scouted, but like that's an opportunity to further
Yeah,
develop, right? Because like you said, if
yeah,
you're not facing that competition,
right.
how do you get better? How do you improve? And yeah, you
And here's
might
the
be at a
thing.
program to where you're the man on the team, but like you get somewhere else and you're like, oh, it's a different
E-
level. So that's
Exactly.
surreal. Yeah.
Exactly. And here's the thing. If I would have left him at Pop Warner, he would have never been, in my opinion, prepared to go to Modern Day. He
Right.
just wouldn't have been prepared. Because when he went to Modern Day, it's not like they were like, okay, yeah, you're gonna the red carpet rolled out for you. You're gonna start this
Right.
year. No, he had to earn it.
Right.
He had to
Right.
earn it, and he wasn't the guy that they were looking for to be the guy. I'll say that
Right.
he wasn't. But I knew he was prepared, and I knew him being at the Ducks and
Right.
having guys come in, year out. You got guys flying from Florida,
Right.
driving all the way from Orange County. Here I am driving from Fontana to Riverside. You got guys driving from L.A., Compton,
Right.
Orange County, and people
Right.
calling me crazy. So and guess what? Everybody made it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Everybody
Right.
that made that sacrifice, they're playing in the big leagues and D1 and all that. So by him facing that competition each year in and year out, and I'm not gonna lie, it was hard. It was frustrating me at
Hmm.
times. You know what I mean? Because I'm feeling like he's better than this guy, or you're just used to seeing him, so you're playing the guy over him. But it just prepared him for modern day. It prepared him for modern day.
And I like what you said that there because it's like you have people. You went to the Ducks. You have people coming from different areas. That
Hmm.
competition's always changing, and you got to learn how to deal with that. That
Hmm.
next level, you get to modern day, and again, they're heavily recruiting, but they also
Hmm.
have coaches coming from all over the company. So, like, I mean, the country. So that's
Country, yeah.
that's like a prerequisite for what it's like
What it's
when you
like.
make it to college and even at that pro level because you have again level of competition, different athletes. Like, so you're
Hmm.
riding the path like at every level is like a different level of training for
Every
them.
level is a different
That's
level,
awesome.
exactly. And
Yeah.
and two, basically what we're talking about here is life. You know what I mean? Being prepared for life. And it's my job, and it's every parent's job, in my opinion, to prepare them for life. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Um, because nobody wants to go into life guessing. You know what I mean? You get lost, you get lucky, but you want your kid to be prepared, and
Hmm.
that's something I wanted for him. I felt like I wasn't too prepared as I could have been. No, not to my parents, but I'm just saying.
Right.
I wanted him to be overly prepared for any situation that's thrown at him.
Right.
And that's one thing I always told him: life's not fair.
Right.
He's like, that's not fair. I've been playing here longer than this guy, and he's, getting reps over me. That's not fair. I'm like, man, life's
That's how
not fair. That's
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 how
how
it
it goes.
goes.
So he
Right.
learned that. He learned
Hmm.
that at an early age. I'm like, so what you're gonna have to do is stay ready.
Hmm.
Don't pout. Don't sit up here and be like, oh, woe, it's me. Stay ready, compete for that
Right.
spot, and fight every day if that's what you want. And I was like, and I promise you, it'll happen. Now, I've never played D1 ball. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I know how to do math. 1 + 1 = 2.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're overly prepared for something, by the time you face it, it's
Yeah.
only right, it equals to two.
Right.
Easy. You know what I mean? So yeah, he put in the work. Even you were training him at one point in time,
Yeah.
getting his core right.
Yep.
With Tri Fitness.
Yep.
I had him training with. If there's something that I couldn't train him with, and I only know so much. As
Right.
parents, we only know so much. Shout out to those parents that could train their kid from yay high to this high. But like Joe Montana said too, you don't want it to ruin the relationship. So
Right.
if there was something that I didn't know and I couldn't teach him, I did the research, found the coaches that did know exactly what he was lacking and that could take his game to another level. And I
Right.
did that as well in between time. So by the time he got to modern day, man, he's had training, he's had personal training, he's faced talent not just in this area, but in San Diego, in the IE, in LA. He's been
Across the
to
country.
Florida. Yeah, he's
Right.
been across the country in Florida and played the best of the
Right.
best there, from Texas, New Jersey, etc. And he's seen it since 10. So for those 4 years, he's just been preparing for high school. Now he's in high school, same thing. You got guys, flying in to play for modern day. You got guys coming from, up north to play for modern day. You got to be ready. You got to play an IMG. You know what I mean? You got to play St. John Bosco. These guys, these teams are, top teams in the nation.
Right.
And a lot of times those guys are bigger than you. But in your mind, if you haven't seen it before, you're going to be a little bit intimidated. He's seen it all. So it's like, oh, this is fun to me. And so, he was always prepared, man.
That's
And,
fu- that's funny you say
it's
that because
crazy.
it's like you can tell the people that again you work, you prepare. At some
Hmm.
point, that intimidation turns into a challenge, right? So you're like,
Hmm.
okay, it's a new challenge. It's time to show that preparation. You step up to that challenge. So that's key that you talked about that, because I mean that's the progression that happens
Yeah,
across all of us athletes, right? And then for those that just aren't ready for that, that's when it's a different road, different challenge, and it's like either an
yeah,
opportunity
man.
to learn from that adversity, or that's when you decide, you know what, at some point, like, okay, this isn't for me. Like, it's not cut out for me, because it's a grind, man.
It's a
And
grind. Yeah,
it's mentally it's challenging, but so that, yeah, that's great feedback, great perspective. Because again, I know we've been speaking with former athletes, and really it's just like, hey, how was your recruiting? You know, your life experience once you got there directly from them. But again, there's a whole side of things, and you just talked about it. You laid it out just about that preparation. So fast forward, went to Modern Day, killed it at Modern Day, um,
yeah.
fielded offers, ultimately ended up going to Oregon. Um,
Hmm.
we both know how that went, but like talk
Yeah.
about that first experience for him, which I'm sure people were wondering why you were wearing a UCLA shirt, but we're talking about Oregon. So talk a little bit about that period in time.
So, man, you have to understand the 21 class probably had, and I can't even complain because he had choices. You know, there's a lot of guys that were definitely good enough to go D1 out the gate, but that class had the rug pulled up under them. So no matter
Going
how, yeah,
into Oregon, right?
going into
Right,
college in general.
right.
So meaning they didn't get to do the official visits. Coaches didn't get to come to the house and visit. Um, because COVID had hit his junior year going into his senior year that March.
And that's the
So,
year.
and that's the year where you get to
Mm-hmm.
meet face to face with these coaches, right?
Right, right.
You get to sit with them. You get to look them in the eye. They're all salesmen. Keep in mind. That's what a lot of parents don't know. So they'll gas you up like you're the only person in the world, but
Yep.
they're salesmen. You know what I
That's what
mean?
I call it, the
Yeah,
sell. Yep.
man, that's what they do. As soon as you sign that letter, national letter of intent, some of those calls stop. You know,
Yep.
and I wish you would try to politic with the coach and try to tell them how to do their job. You know what I mean? Like, dude, like I'm making high six figures, bro. Get out my face, man.
Yeah,
Let
right.
me
I'm
put
on
you
to
on
the
the
next one.
Broncos. Yeah. So,
Right.
so to be honest, there was a we were overwhelmed because there were a lot of schools and a lot of choices he could have made, and you had USC obviously, but uh, like I said, Jalen listened to me, and is he took my guidance, and a lot of kids don't do that. You know what I mean? There's a lot of kids that, in my opinion, that I seen grow up that should have gone D1 that didn't, just because of the fact they didn't either listen to their parents and have a support system, or they just didn't have a support system. And it's heartbreaking to see because
Right.
you see a kid full potential and they just don't reach it. But that's why I could always give him credit for listening, because as a kid, even a young adult, it's hard to listen to your parents. Even myself, you know how it goes. It's like, I'm gonna do my own thing. I know what
Right.
I'm doing. I'm gonna
Right.
make my own mistakes. But he's avoided a lot of heartache, and but just by listening. You know what I mean? So I have to give him that credit, and I can't stress that enough, because if at any point in time he didn't listen,
Yeah.
you know, who knows, but
Yeah. Injury, everything.
everything.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah, so about him getting recruited, man, how we came to the choice of Oregon, it was hard because here I am thinking we're going to take official visits to see these schools, and the only real school we got a chance to see repeatedly was USC,
It's local.
and because it's local,
Right.
UCLA too, and I like
Right.
UCLA. Really, when we went there, I had I had a feeling over me like, man, this is it. Like the
Yeah.
aura, like the environment, like the air, everything just smelled like, oh yeah, this is when we went his sophomore year. I'm like, yo, this is where he's supposed to be. And they treated him like, you know,
Like family, like he was there
like
already.
family, like yeah, like he was
Right.
there already, and like they appreciated who he was.
Right.
And the only thing is, at the time, they didn't have a DB coach. So they didn't have a DB coach at the time because they
Yeah.
were in transition of hiring, and thinking back, like how could they hire in the midst of a pandemic?
Right. What's gonna
So that was,
happen? Just
hmm
yeah. Right.
We had set it up to where he would graduate early, so our
Yeah.
clock was different than everybody else's clock of when he had to commit to a school.
Yeah.
So the schools that were out there were, Arizona, ASU, where Herm Edwards was,
Hmm.
dodged the bullet there. As you can see,
I heard about it. Yep.
USC, man, it was hard because I like USC. A lot of his modern day feeds USC a lot of players, so it's kind of like
Right.
going to
Right.
modern day. You're just gonna go to
That's an
USC. So
extension of it. Yeah.
yeah, it's an extension of it. So it's kind of like, but at the same time, I think he wanted a different environment, a change in scene. So, and then there was a lot of uncertainty with the coaching staff at the time. Obviously, as you can see, Lincoln Riley wasn't there.
Right.
So I didn't know what was going to happen. If a new coaching staff was going to come in, how they were going to restructure it.
Right.
I wasn't really impressed with everything that was going on there in the past with the talent that I seen go there.
Right.
And more importantly, Jaylin didn't want to go
He
there.
wasn't.
He didn't.
Yeah. He
He
wasn't
didn't want
feeling
to
it.
go.
Point
And
blank.
like, even though I wanted him to go a little bit,
Right.
he wasn't feeling it at all. So I'm like, I'm not going to force him to go somewhere he doesn't want to go. Obviously,
Right.
Uh, we were making the decision together, and I valued his decision because, obviously it's where he's going to have to live and stay, and it's his choice.
Right.
Um, Ohio State was on the list, but like I said, we couldn't get on campus. We couldn't meet the coaches.
Right.
Oregon was a place, like I said, going back to when he was a kid, a place that me and him both fell in love with the university at the time.
Hmm.
Um, we seen it once, but it was during the pandemic, so we didn't really get to see it open and active. But it looked nice.
Right.
Sorry about that, man. Flies out here, but
Okay.
but Oregon was just the storybook, and when all the schools were telling you the same thing, and they were on the rise, and they had an opportunity for him to play early, I thought and
That
felt
was the one.
based on how their roster, how many DBs they had leaving, I felt like he could go in there and have a good opportunity to, compete.
Right.
But it didn't go as planned. That whole coaching staff ended up leaving at the end of the season, and a new whole coaching staff ended up getting hired, and it just wasn't.
Wasn't a good situation.
It wasn't a good situation, environment
Right.
wise either. We finally got to see it after the pandemic opened up. You
Right.
know, we couldn't see the coaches at the time. We couldn't see any coaches at the time, but I knew if Oregon was a place that he loved and he wouldn't regret going regardless.
Yeah.
So that's how he ended up making the decision to go to Oregon.
Yeah. So then fast forward, obviously, like you said, coaches transition, things happen. Um,
Right,
and obviously that was a different thing that you got to navigate. But again, I think,
right.
like you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, it just, again, all comes back to just that preparation and you're just going with what you're most comfortable with and putting yourself in that good situation.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so fast forward now, obviously, how are things at UCLA? And looking forward to
Man,
getting him on the next episode to kind of get his perspective and really talk about that firsthand experience. But like from your side of the steering wheel, like how's everything working out?
man, everything is working out like it should.
Yeah,
I'm so happy he's there. I'm so happy, he has a better, I could tell his mind based on the environment. And
yeah,
you've been to UCLA. It's just a euphoria of positive
yeah,
energy, I feel. So, man, that, it's not, and nothing's in Eugene, not no knock to those guys, but if you're from California, staying in California is the best. At the end of the day, it's like Jaylin, we took a chance on Oregon, didn't work out. It's cool. Thank God
right,
they have this transfer portal thing. I
yeah,
know how it works. Here's what we're gonna do. And I always knew this, even though because it was the pandemic, he'll always have a chance after his first year to come back home.
right,
And so, we took opportunity of that. But now looking back, if we could do it all over again, he would just went to UCLA straight out the gate.
yeah.
Straight out the gate, yeah, straight out the gate. I mean, the
But I
signs were
mean,
there,
yeah.
but yeah, he should have just went there out the gate.
But I mean, I'm glad you say that because you talked about, everything happens for a reason. It's all part of that experience. Like, how different do you think it would have been if he did that? Like, do you think it would have been same outcome, or do you think it would have been better off? Like, what do you think? Just, I mean, hindsight's
Man,
2020, but like, what do you think?
yeah. Actually, I don't regret, him going to Oregon first because it's allowed him to appreciate college
Right,
and UCLA a whole lot more.
right,
Getting away from your environment is good. And he was away for about a good year. He got to see what it was like outside of California. He got to see
right,
what it was like on his own. He got to see what it was like in a different city.
right.
And how coaches run things, and for that particular college. And now
Hmm.
that he's at UCLA, he was like, oh, okay, so this is the right way to do things. Now he's really learning from literally one of the best in the game, in my opinion, as far as Chip Kelly goes. I mean, if you really look at what Chip Kelly has done, he's revolutionized the game. Everybody's playing tempo. Everybody's going no huddle. Everybody's doing fast pace now. Before him, it was a lot of sweep right, sweep left, dive, dive, dive.
Right, right.
And he's now you look across the board, man. Everybody's tempo, tempo, tempo. So he's a real he knows his science as far as the players go. I like how he treats the players' body. He lets them sleep in.
Hmm.
He really cares about their well being outside of football as well, which is more
Right.
important because he
That's
knows you're
great.
not going to be able to play this game forever.
Right.
So man, when Chip just started speaking, man, it was kind of like, man, he's speaking my language. And to be honest, I'm a basketball guy. I wasn't really watching college football till Chip's often. I seen Chip's often, so it was like, man, the signs have been here. He's been here.
Right.
We went to the Ducks because of Chip Kelly, not necessarily because of the Ducks, if that makes sense. And
I
now
mean,
you
it's
have an
almost like that.
opportunity to play for Chip Kelly,
Right.
just
It's
kaboom,
it's
full
ironic
circle.
because it's like, yeah, I was gonna say full circle because you've been preparing him. You guys been preparing for that sort of situation that whole time. Now it came full circle. So that's
Yeah. And the
dope.
best part about it, the story's not finished. So who knows what might happen.
Oh, he going to the
We,
league. I'm calling it.
yeah, man.
I'll say it.
Lord,
You don't have to
Lord
say it.
willing,
I'll
Lord
say
willing. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it.
yeah. Lord willing.
Yeah.
But he's in a great environment now, much better than before.
Right.
Um, he has the opportunity to do and be whoever he wants to be.
Right.
He'll always be able to tap into the great alumni and network as far as
Right.
UCLA goes.
Right.
When he has kids, they can go there.
Right.
Most importantly, it's free, it's paid for,
Right.
scholarship. So I have zero complaints, man.
Yeah.
Zero complaints. I'm just proud of him.
Yeah,
Real
that's
proud
cool,
of him.
man. Well, yeah, I want to thank you again for hopping on. Just before we
Yeah,
wrap, if you have any advice for any mentors, parents, what do you recommend, or what would you kind of let them know, tell them about if they're kind of starting to go through this experience, or maybe in the middle of it, trying to navigate some of the difficult things that you guys talked about? Like, what small piece of advice would you leave them with?
man. Small piece. That's the hard part. That's a lot, but I got a lot of advice, man. But the most important part I'll probably say is make sure you have a balance of love as well as work. You know what I mean? And don't put so much pressure on your kid. You know what I mean? At the same time, don't let them get too comfortable either. Make sure they're preparing for what's coming rather than, you know, everybody seems nowadays that they want to just talk about, oh, my kid is, this, that, and the third, which is fine. It's cool. I was there. But what's most important is preparing them because when they get on that field, you cannot be on the field with them. You know what I mean? You can't be on the sideline. When they're out there, they're doing everything on their own. It's all based on how you put them in position to prepare for that moment. So if you got to get out your comfort zone, and I'm not saying go to the Ducks and go that route. I'm just saying do what's best for your kid to be ready for that next level. Don't try to shy them away. A lot of guys are baby, man, and it doesn't translate to the next level at all. So don't baby your kid too much.
That's
That's
real,
the best
because I
thing I can
always say
say.
it's a business, and they
It's a
they care
business.
about they care about you and your athlete as much as they can benefit from them. And if they can't, then they'll find that person who's up next. So
Exactly. Exactly.
that's
Exactly.
cool, man.
So
Well,
yeah, man.
again, Mr. Toby Davies, thank you for
Yes,
taking
sir.
the time. Looking forward. I know we're talking offline, but looking forward to rolling out your podcast that elaborate on a lot of the stuff that you talked about. So
Yeah, man.
Whoever's listening, stay tuned for that. But again, if you guys have any questions, thoughts, concerns, feel free to reach out to us at Tri Elements Fitness. Toby, throw out your Instagram in case anyone kind of wants to hit you up or reach out to you if they have any questions.
Yeah, man. Toby757, man. Just hit me on Instagram. I'm there.
Cool. Well, again, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until then, we'll catch you next time.
All
Peace.
right, man. Peace.